Good afternoon, everyone. Prinhanda. Thank you very much. A warm welcome for joining us at the first of a series of 4 ProMo-Cymru webinars this week on digital engagement and young people. So my name is Cindy Chen. I'm Development Manager at ProMo-Cymru, where I oversee the communications and engagement team. Now, some of you may have already heard of ProMo-Cymru or even be familiar with our work, but I do know that there are some of you who may be coming across us for the first time today. So ProMo-Cymru, Cymru meaning Wales, is a charity and social enterprise based in Wales. We've been around for over 30 years, and we deliver a number of digital services and projects to ensure young people and communities are informed, engaged, connected, and heard. And our strength lies in making meaningful links between people and services using creativity and digital technology. So today I'll be spending the next 40 minutes sharing with you an overview of how we carried out the Youth Checkpoints pilot project in Wales, taking you through the project process, findings, learning, and recommendations. So to give you some background on how this project came about, in 2019, the Money and Pension Service MAPS commissioned ProMo-Cymru and Youth Cymru, which is another major youth charity in Wales, to carry out a pilot project to test ways to embed money guidance and support for young adults between the age of 18 to 25 at key checkpoints on their journeys to financial independence. By key checkpoints, we mean a key transition point in their lives. So for example, moving out, getting a first job, starting an apprenticeship. Because research has shown that young people are particularly receptive to financial education during this time. So our objective for this piece of work was to research and test what works well and less well to target young adults at key checkpoints and to integrate financial capability provision into existing settings that support young people. So we co-designed this project with young people and practitioners supporting them using a service design methodology. Service design is a two-pronged approach. It is about improving how a service is being delivered by those who are delivering it, and improving how a service is being accessed by those who need to access it. So in order for us to find the answers we need, we have to go and speak to different people to piece together different pieces of the jigsaw in order to understand the big picture. We have to understand what doesn't work, what don't work at the moment, and how things should work in the future, and come up with some prototypes to test our ideas. At the heart of the service design approach lies the voices and experiences of users. Now, this methodology has 4 phases: discover, define, develop, and deliver. In discovery, what we are trying to do is we are gaining lots of insights from different places into the problem. In the second stage, define, we critically analyze these findings and zoom in to what we think is the root cause of the problem. In the third stage, we start to generate some potential solutions which could address the root cause of the problem. And in the fourth stage, which is deliver, we actually test out some of the solutions to find out whether they work. The discovery phase of our project was carried out between October 2019 and February 2020. So we began by conducting a literature review of existing documents and publications on the subject, existing research. But at the same time, to gain deeper insight into the issues and to understand the Welsh perspectives, we conducted face-to-face consultations with over 1,000 young people at events, colleges, youth centres across Wales. We also ran digital polls on Instagram and Facebook, and we successfully gathered over 5,000 online responses from young people. In addition, we consulted with over 30 practitioners from such as training providers who work in universities, colleges. And here are the 7 main key insights we had uncovered from our primary and secondary research. Key insight number 1, young people presently acquire most of their financial information and habits, and these could be bad and good, from parents and family members. So what we found was that they actually learned this behavior and habits from home, from their personal circumstances, instead of, say, from an education setting. So we have young people saying things like, my mom told me to save every month if I have a wage coming in. I watched my mom struggle with money when I was growing up, and it took her ages to get out of it. I decided I didn't want to be in the same boat. Key insight number 2, many young people lack financial capability, confidence, and resilience, more so than other age groups in society. So we have a comment here from a young person. I racked up an unplanned overdraft of £900, and it was a complete nightmare because I didn't know they charged interest for it. I had to declare myself bankrupt, so my credit score is rubbish now. Key insight number 3, young people are hesitant to ask for help and identify there is a financial problem and talk about it. So we have the problem here where young people not only lack financial capability, confidence, and resilience, and to add to the problem, when they are facing an issue, they are hesitant to ask for help. And here's what they say. I don't want to talk about it. It's my fault, so I need to deal with it. I'll only ask for help if I'm struggling, I don't have anything to live off. I'd have to be really in trouble before I spoke to someone. So to summarize, many young people would have to reach crisis point before reaching out for help. By this time, their problems might already be massive. Key insight number 4. Interestingly, all this changes when young people have increased responsibilities in their lives. So young people start becoming better at managing their money when they have responsibilities such as becoming a parent, or perhaps they have become a primary carer for their own parents. The mindset of having to look after a child, said one young person, has changed me. I have responsibilities now, so I check my finances every day. Key insight number 5. There is a lack of clear and simple to understand financial advice for young people across multiple platforms for which they expressed a preference. Now, the key words in this insight are clear and simple to understand financial advice for young people across multiple platforms. So we are not saying there's nothing out there for young people, but we are saying there is a lack of clear and simple to understand, so really accessible financial information, and across multiple platforms. So we don't mean just text, loads of text. We mean, is this information available on videos? Is it available as a podcast? Is it available as an animation, a moving image on Instagram story, for example? So here's some comments from young people. I want someone to be direct with me in a language I understand. I'm more likely to ignore something when I don't understand it. At the moment, the language is very formal. Anything informal would be great. Instead of seeing lots of text, maybe a video, simplify guidance to make it more accessible. Key insight number 6, there is a lack of money-related support services tailored for young people. the young people that we consulted with told us that when they were in debt and they approached some support agencies, they felt it was very adult focused, and the information and the support was not pitched at their level. So here's a comment from a young person: services talk to you about where you are now and have a go at us for making bad decisions rather than suggesting solutions. Nobody teaches you this stuff, so how am I supposed to get it right? And the last key insight: many practitioners lack training and confidence to support young people on financial capability. So with almost all of the practitioners we spoke to voiced concerns or worries about giving or providing some financial advice to the young people they work with. Bearing in mind, they are often viewed as trusted adults by young people, and are more likely to for young people to approach them for support. However, they don't feel confident about providing that sort of support to young people. We have comments such as, I would go to a colleague to get advice, but this isn't my area of expertise. I don't want to get anything wrong, especially as it's such an important thing to get right. I wouldn't offer advice. I'm not trained to do it, and I'm not comfortable doing something like that. So with all the evidence and insights gathered from the discovery phase, we began the process to generate ideas to create positive change. What we did was we critically analyzed our findings, and we narrowed down to 9 potential prototypes which we think might work. So they are a triage system to help practitioners better identify young people's needs, online and virtual reality games to allow young people to explore actions, options, and consequences virtually, some real-life case studies which could be shared with their peers, a website and social media content for young people to access engaging and accessible content, support for parents to be able to develop their children's financial capability, a helpline service which practitioners could refer young people to, training for practitioners to support young people, a website and a set of resources for practitioners to use with young people, and one-to-one mentoring and money coaching. From these 9, we selected 3 in the end that were the most feasible given the timescales and our constraints involved. And here are the 3. So to meet our research objective, we decided to focus on prototypes for practitioners who currently support young people rather than creating solutions for young people to access on their own. So we narrowed them down to a helpline service which practitioners could refer young people to, a training program for practitioners to allow them to develop better knowledge and confidence to support young people on financial capability, and an accessible website and a set of resources for practitioners to use with young people. And I'll now explain to you how we tested these prototypes in the deliver phase. So prototype number 1, which is the money helpline for young people. Now, ProMo-Cymru runs the Mike helpline, which provides general information, guidance, signposting, and advocacy to young people in Wales. Young people can access this helpline every day from 8 a.m. to 12 midnight by phone, text, and online chat. Our advisors use a holistic approach to work towards the outcome of what a young person can do for themselves. It is rights-based, and it is led by what matters most to the young person. So we decided to build on this existing resource. We were able to pilot the concept of a helpline service which practitioners could refer young people to. First of all, 2 ProMo-Cymru helpline advisors completed the Train the Trainer program, which is prototype number 2, Train the Trainer program, on financial capability. We then recruited 10 young people, and they attended a briefing over Zoom. The young people were aged between 18 to 25 and had a range of personal circumstances, including being in education, just leaving education, job seeking, part-time employed, facing redundancy, so on and so forth. At the initial briefing, they were supported by us to create money-related questions and scenarios based on their real experiences in preparation to test the helpline. They were then given a time slot of 30 minutes the next day and asked to contact the helpline by online chat, text, and SMS. After the testing, the participants filled out an online survey, and they also came back to attend another Zoom evaluation session. And the testing found that young people felt more informed and confident after receiving support from the helpline. Advisors felt more aware of resources, terminology to use, more confident on how to support young people on money issues. And we found that actually money issues are so intertwined with the young people's other life issues that a holistic helpline like Mike is well placed to provide that support rather than a standalone money helpline which only addresses financial matters. For prototype number 2, we were originally meant to be delivering this over 2 full days in person at probably a couple of different training providers, but because of COVID, we had to adapt this prototype to be carried out online. So what we did was we split up the 2 days of training into 4 times 1.5 hour weekly sessions, and we chose to work with ITAC, which is a training provider in Wales, to test this delivery, and we used Adobe Connect. The training content was developed to test a variety of topics in response to needs identified by practitioners when we did the consultations with them. So the sessions include: what is financial capability, well-being? What are some useful tools, resources out there, some frameworks, segmenting, savings, managing credit, and embedding this learning into their work. And the testing found that there was increased confidence and knowledge on supporting young people. We did weekly polls at the sessions with the training provider, the ITAC staff, to find out, asking them to assess their own level of knowledge and skill, how confident they felt. And we did notice a week by week increase in their confidence and knowledge, knowing where to go to access the right resources, knowing where to signpost young people to. We also found and realized that after doing the training, that online training demands actually a similar level of resourcing as face-to-face training. So you do need the same number of staff members to be present with you online. There needs to be more, in fact, prep work that you needed to do because there were other sort of challenges we had to overcome by delivering it online. The last prototype is the resources website. The resources website was designed to accompany the Train the Trainer program. We built a simple database using an online tool called Notion to enable practitioners to quickly find and revisit the tools and information covered during the course. So what we did was we put together a curated list of helpful resources, such as toolkits and lesson plans for professionals to access easily. And at the end of the testing, practitioners fed back to us to say it was a great idea and indicated a demand for such a resource because the website was very user-friendly and useful. It was useful to have everything in one place. So the learning and feedback from our prototypes validated our hypothesis and existing evidence for improving money guidance, which was young people could be better supported at key checkpoints when practitioners are well trained, they feel confident and have access to the right tools. At the end of the service design approach, we created 8 recommendations. Recommendation number 1, adopt a holistic approach to provide money guidance to young people. Every single young person who tested that money helpline presented money-related issues that were woven into a wide range of other issues. To effectively support young people's money issues, they need to be dealt with and considered in context with their wider life circumstances. Recommendation number 2, develop youth-friendly money-related resources. This was a recurrent theme that came up throughout the project. Young people didn't feel many services were for them because they were adult-focused, and during the helpline testing, the advisors identified a gap in digital resources to signpost young people to. Recommendation number 3, develop a clear navigation pathway of support for young people in Wales. Our research uncovered a lack of clarity amongst practitioners over how best to support young people with financial matters and where to signpost them to. What is the first step a practitioner should take? A clear, consistent pathway is needed. Recommendation number 4, use modern communication methods and techniques to engage young people on the subject of money. In this pilot, we were able to gather over 5,000 responses from young people through online quick answer polls and reach over 4,000 young people with money-related posts created both in English and Welsh. This is a positive indication that young people will engage with money content if promoted in the right way over the right channels. Recommendation number 5, raise awareness amongst practitioners of young people's needs so that they can better identify underlying money issues and provide more relevant and appropriate support. Early indications from the prototype testing showed that advisors were more able to identify underlying issues following the training. Recommendation number 6, develop specialist training for youth practitioners to equip them to be more confident to help young people. Again, the train-the-trainer prototype clearly demonstrated that there is not only a demand for financial capability training amongst practitioners, but also it improved their confidence and ability to support the young people they work with. So this training, it was only a test, but it had the potential to be developed into something to be developed further to achieve more for the practitioners. Recommendation number 7, make the existing maps, resources, and tools more accessible for practitioners and young people to use. So during the training program, it became evident that many maps resources were very useful for practitioners. However, they are often very big, text-heavy docs. Some of them are around 50 to 60 pages long. And for time-poor practitioners, they may not have the time to pore over such large documents in order to find what they need to support a young person. So these documents and frameworks could be further simplified to allow them to be more accessible for time-poor practitioners. And the last recommendation is to use a combination of online and face-to-face training for practitioners. The TTT prototype demonstrated that an online training program actually was very beneficial for practitioners who have limited time to engage with additional learning. They didn't have to travel, they didn't have to drive places, they could just log on and access the training. However, it also became clear during delivery that for any training program to be effective, it would need to combine online provision with face-to-face opportunities. Okay, I've now come to the end of my presentation, and I'll now like to invite my colleague, Ariel Tai, to join me. Ariel worked with me very closely on this project to join me in answering any questions you may have. I'm going to stop sharing now.
Thanks, Cindy. We have had one question so far, and I'll give people obviously a moment if they have got any questions, just please do pop them in the chat. And also, if I can just ask you again, when you are typing it, please choose the option for panelists and attendees, just that way everyone can see the question you're putting in there. But yeah, the first question we've had is from Jeff Bocock. He says, what aspects of GDPR and safeguarding were considered as part of the 3 key areas of focus for those potentially involved in the future? Quite a topical one, I suppose, with everyone, all the issues that was kind of going on around GDPR around the time that you started the project, really.
Sorry, Andrew, can you read that again? I was trying to get it.
Oh, sorry, yeah, of course. It's, yeah, apologies if you might be able to see it in the chat if you can open it, which might help. But yeah, just to let you know, it's what aspects of GDPR and safeguarding were considered as part of the 3 key areas of focus for all those potentially involved in future.
Do you mean, sorry, who can you
So
tell me the
that's
name?
Jeff.
Jeff. So I'm not sure whether Jeff meant engaging with the young people online. Is that what you mean, Jeff?
Maybe, Cindy, we can start with that, presuming it is meaning engage with the young people online, and then maybe if Jeff wants to clarify anything else.
Oh yeah, he said yes.
Yeah, so I suppose, I mean, I'm happy to make a start with that one. As sort of Cindy explained, we're very in the fortunate position at Promo-Cymru that we already operate the Make Helpline, which is a Wales, all Wales helpline for young people. And it's actually available from 8 in the morning till midnight every day. Young people can phone, text, or instant message. And it's absolutely anonymous. So the young people can get in touch. And the way that we operate it through a call handling system. So even our advisors, for example, can't actually get access to, for example, that young person's phone number. The only time that we would actually be able to access that is if there is a risk. So if the young person, for example, explains something that puts them at risk of harm or somebody else in immediate harm, we follow our safeguarding procedures. And that would then mean that we could actually get the authorities involved and trace their IP address, etc. But usually it's completely anonymous. And that's what makes it really good for the young people, because actually they know that they can get in touch with us and we don't hold their personal information. They might, of course, on a helpline contact, reveal something about themselves or where they live. But in terms of that, we won't really store that information, and that will all be on a very secure server if that happens. So that's how we sort of get around that. I hope that sort of answers your question. I don't know if there's anything else there, Cindy, that you want to add.
Actually, I wanted to, I was trying to look for this document, which was very helpfully put together by, we started to pull something together ourselves, and actually this gave us a lot of guidance and reference. Also, it was pulled together by Kafili Youth Service, and it is actually available on the Promo-Cymru Notion website. So if you are interested in how to engage with young people virtually using Zoom, this is actually quite a good guide, and it is it has sort of references such as safeguarding, sort of treat your online calls the same way you would do for your face-to-face work. So if you need to obtain parental consent. We always make sure that there are at least two staff members with us on every call. We take a register of what young people engaged with. so on and so forth. So there is a really helpful list of guidelines you could refer to. There are some Zoom etiquettes as well. We always say to young people, if you don't feel comfortable with putting the camera on, you don't have to. I think that's, but I would recommend looking at this guide, which we have available on the Notion site, if you are interested in finding out more, because this is something that's really comprehensive, that's already been put together by the Caerphilly Youth Service. I find it a really helpful guide for anyone to refer to. Hopefully that answers your question, Jeff.
Great. Well, I can see there's a few more that have come in as well while you've been answering that one. So if we move on to Tom. Tom has asked, are you able to provide an approximate cost for this project should someone look to commission it in their area? I mean, I know that's a bit of a slightly difficult one, I suppose, to provide an exact sort of funding idea, but I suppose it really, is the cost that important, or actually is it more a sort of style of working anyway? Well, I mean, if that's an easier question to be able to answer.
Do you want to answer that, Ariel, or do you want me to go?
I'm happy to make a start again. I mean, this, you know, we often get this question. You know, I suppose the funding can be, the projects with service design can be as big or as small in a way as you like. Obviously, there is obviously going to be a minimum of the amount that you can do. With this project, actually, all we ended up being able to do was produce a pilot. So with the service design approach, it was really about discovering, finding out what's needed, filling those gaps, creating a pilot and testing a concept. So really the only point we've got to is the end concept, and we haven't got a fully fledged service in place, because that would be, you know, a lot more in terms of resources. So this size project, to actually do all the research for the project, I mean, bearing in mind we engage with 2,500 young people, we engage with practitioners all over Wales, so it was very sizable in terms of the research, but actually you don't, you know, you can narrow that, so you could do smaller. For example, I'm working with a health board at the moment, and we're actually doing the research on a much smaller basis, and then we're going to do each step on a smaller basis. So this one actually was about £100,000 worth of project, but at Promo-Cymru, you know, we're doing service design projects that are, you know, £10,000. And actually we can do parts of it as well, which are less again. So I think it is depending on how much you want, but I suppose just to reiterate there that the final result of this actually isn't a fully functional service yet. That is actually just the development and testing a concept. And then, you know, there would be a lot more finance needed to, I suppose, run a service like this on an ongoing basis.
I would add to that and say, Tom, if you would like to drop us a message, so either me or Ariel, if, maybe Andrew, you could drop the email address in the chat. I think it's probably best if we have a chat, if you're interested in something like this, where we can find out a bit more about your requirements, and we then are able to provide a price based on what are your requirements. I think that would be the best way forward.
There's Tom's reply. It's great. I can just see, I think that looks like most of the questions that I can see. I think there was one about were there any plans for rolling out practitioner training, but I think you've kind of already alluded to the fact that this is still a, you know, kind of an early project really without the follow through at the moment. I think another question's just come in from Jeff. I'm not sure. Let me just. I'm working on a voluntary basis for a charity that already have a mentoring scheme for young people online. They monitor chats, given they may be financial signposting guidance. Was there consideration for monitoring chats for quality guidance? Also, I think Cindy or Ariel, you alluded to the Notion website with some digital resources in it. I can drop that in the chat as well as a link, so that if people do want to visit our Notion site. So just to give you a little bit of background at this, when lockdown 1 started way back in March, Promo-Cymru very quickly built a sort of resources website for charities and third sectors in Wales, but to be honest, it's largely applicable across sectors and across the UK. But we've tried to put in as much resources that might be of use to third sector organisations during this time. So yeah, it's all of the information on there is kind of, it's free. It's been backed up by Welsh Government, various councils and third sector charities. So it's definitely worth perusing that. There's loads of resources, tools, websites that we've added in, and we're kind of continuing to keep up to date with. So hopefully you've all got access to that in the chat.
I've just seen the other question there from, well, the sort of clarification there, a bit more information from Jeff. And just to sort of say there that, yes, in terms of like when we monitor chat, so for our Make helpline, just to give you a bit of an example of what we do monitor chats for a few reasons. So there is safeguarding as a really important priority, but also, of course, for quality. So that is certainly something we do as well. But if you do, again, want to find out more information about that, please do get in touch with us. And something there that came through from Martin, that it would probably cost more if you didn't do this work. Absolutely. We love to hear that. We are such massive advocates of the service design approach, and that's the 4-step approach that Cindy spoke about. And it's because it's about really finding out and testing something on a small scale. Once you start to sort of get a feel and indicators that this service that you've launched and the concept design is actually working, that's when you start to incrementally build it into something else. And this is actually quite a different approach to how so many of our services are designed, where we sort of have an idea, a big pot of money comes out, and then we build a service, and then we start testing it after we've already put so much money into it. And this is a completely different sort of way of thinking, which is getting more and more used now, I'm happy to say. And festivals like this, Digital Leaders Week, actually, you'll be hearing probably a lot about this sort of service design thinking and approach. So thank you for that comment. Yes, we're massive fans of it.
I don't know if you've had a chance there. This has been another new question from SJ Haps. What consideration did you give to young people with learning disability or neurodiverse condition such as autism?
I don't know if you've got an answer to that, Cindy, or you'd like me to have a go.
I'm just trying to think whether, I mean, I think we have maybe some inclination or some perhaps hints or inclinations that from some of the young people that we work with, they may fall into some of those categories. I think one of the young people may be slightly autistic. However, they haven't disclosed this to us because we don't, when we are recruiting young people, we don't ask about their sort of disabilities. It is very much an open opportunity for any interested young people to get involved. In a sense, I don't really think this matters very much into how they supported us with the project, because they were brilliant as any other young person. So I suppose we didn't really actively think about who and so might be, what sort of actively think about what disabilities they may have. I mean, I don't know about you, Aria. It sort of made me think a bit about the young people we worked with.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think it's because we work with sort of a key core sort of group of young people to design this service. But a lot of it, I would say, comes from our background of running the Make helpline and making that service as accessible as possible. Actually, young people can phone, they can text, or they can instant message the service. And all of the content and way that we provide that content is following accessibility guidelines. And also we test a lot of that with young people as well. However, we do also know from previous testing that there are certain groups of young people that will struggle to access certain services. One group that we were working with was the Deaf Youth Club in Cardiff, and they really helped us a lot with sort of language and accessibility, and did also show that some, you know, elements of the services that we deliver are not able to be sort of fully accessible to them, because one of the things that they really needed was actually BSL on videos. So even, for example, whereas in our videos we will always put subtitles, but actually we don't always have the resources to create everything, for example, in BSL. But because we give many options as to how you can access our service, it does cover a lot of the different elements, but it doesn't meet all of them. And that's somewhere that we're always trying to improve, but also, you know, having to make sure the resources are there to be able to, you know, provide that. But the fact that we do have video and we have phone, we have text, we have instant message, we are always aiming to make them, I suppose, as accessible as possible. Yeah, so that's a really good point there, that having limited numeracy skills and digital skills as well, you know, it is very challenging. What we try and do is make our content very, very simple, and also making sure there is as few clicks as possible. You know, don't overwhelm people with information. Provide it. In fact, if you're interested in accessible information, my talk tomorrow, here's a little plug, is actually about digital youth information. And this is one of the really important topics that we cover. And it's actually all these different elements that go into making accessible information. And it's so complex, actually. And I think we're all sort of guilty of it, aren't we? Just putting things out there and expecting people to, one, find them, two, be able to understand it, and three, be able to actually act on what they've processed. And that is a whole big area. So please, yeah, please book on tomorrow. And I'll be really interested to share the work we've been doing around that with you.
Apologies, I've just been putting the links for our remaining chats, little plugs throughout. I also did see there was a question that even I can answer that was earlier. I think it was from Rory that just said, will there be a recording? Yeah, Rory, we have recorded the session and we'll be putting it on our social media channels. Probably the best one to look at is our Twitter account. We're just at ProMo-Cymru. So yeah, they'll be going out probably tomorrow afternoon now. Okay, are there any other questions there that we've missed? I'm not sure if I've spotted anything or if anyone has spotted. Oh,
from
yeah, sorry, Cindy.
Trevor, how much of a challenge, I just picked this up.
Yeah.
How much of a challenge is it to meet the the messages go out.
I've got it here. So sorry, from Trevor. How much of a challenge is it to meet the multi-channel demand for the rich media content you describe? I mean, if you want, I can make a start on this because actually, Trevor, that's kind of an area that I do most of my work, is looking at social media and how we make our message as clear as possible for young people. I mean, the short answer is it is a challenge. It is a real challenge, and it's something that unfortunately we probably all too often as a sector we've neglected. And I think sometimes because we're all so busy, and a lot of the time social media is an add-on to the job that we're already doing. It's almost like it can be a bit of an afterthought. And I think actually what we're learning all the time, but now more than ever, is that actually putting the hours and the effort into making that content as attractive, as visual, as engaging as possible is essential, and it does pay off. So even though it is a job and it is a chore, and there's definitely some learning to be done in terms of making sure you can make that content, what I would say is it's worth the time and the effort. And again, I'm going to cheekily plug my talk, seen as you've asked, which is on Wednesday, which is digital trends. So actually we'll be looking at some of the more popular platforms, things like TikTok and short form video content in that. So that might be of interest to you. I don't know if you've got anything to add, Cindy or Ariel?
I just think there is so much information out there. I think our young people are often very bombarded by lots of messages. So I think the main thing for me from this project is the importance of clear and simple to understand messages. So I wouldn't want to, I wouldn't say something that's very fancy or very complicated I wouldn't recommend that. I always think the best thing to do is to drill down. What is it you're trying to tell a young person? What is that key message? Try and make something difficult really simple to understand, as in as short as a video you can create, or as little information. Explain something in as little, using as little words, as few words as you can. I think that's probably the best thing, that best advice I would offer in this sort of information rich, sensory overload times that we live in, particularly with the pandemic.
I've also just sent a link for Canva. Trevor, I don't know if you're at all familiar with it, but it's a really good tool for people, whether you're at a very early stages of making graphic content for an audience. You don't need too much skills to kind of get your toe in and make some really high quality stuff. But even then, actually, if you are a bit more experienced and you're, almost at like a graphic designer level, you can kind of, the world's your oyster with it a little bit, to be honest. So definitely worth checking that out if you haven't already. Oh, awesome. And Roy's just said, apparently, if you're a student, you get free 6 months of Canva. And actually, yes, so Canva, it is a free tool at its core, but there are a lot of kind of additional paid elements where they make their money. But yeah, actually, also, if you're a registered charity, you can get a not-for-profit status, which means you get the full-fledged paid package completely free of charge as well. So definitely worth looking into that. Is there anything else that we haven't covered, or any final questions coming in? I think that brings us to a close, I think. So really all that's left to say is thank you very much to everyone for joining us. Yeah, it's the first time we've used this kind of webinar format on Zoom. Normally we kind of get used to seeing people, so it's kind of really strange not being able to see you, and I'm sure it's the same for you as well. But thanks very much for sticking with us. Thanks for all your comments in the chat. I really hope it's been of use. Yeah, and if you're interested in any of our other talks this week, or if you just want to keep in touch with Promo, yeah, our best to kind of keep up with us on Twitter. So just at ProMo-Cymru. Otherwise, thank you very much, Cindy and Ariel.
Thank you.